Hey everyone, it's Stephanie here, and today I have a card to share that features the fun Holiday Ornaments stamp set and Holiday Ornaments dies from Simon Says Stamp. For this card, I'm going to be using the dies to create a shaker card, and they work perfectly for this because they're a nice big size, not too big, you can still fit a few on a card front, but they're big enough that they really take the focal point of the card and allow you to create a fun shaker card like I'm going to do here. So I just went ahead and picked two of the ornaments that I want to use, as well as one of the ornament tops. And I'm going to go ahead and figure out where I want to place the ornaments on my card front. This is a piece of white Nina Solar White cardstock that I've already cut down with a die, and it's slightly smaller than a standard size card base. So I'm kind of just figuring out where I want these. I know that I want to kind of position them one on top and one a little bit lower because I want to still have room to be able to place my sentiment. So I'm just going ahead and trying to make sure that these are straight on the card, and I'm just going to use some painter's tape to hold them in place while I run them through my die cut machine. Once I have them die cut, I now have these great big ornaments that have kind of taken over the front area of the card. And you can go ahead and keep the insert parts here if you want and just use some ink and stuff to color them. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this small white one and just use the extra paper because I want to create the ornament tops. And then rather than have them just a plain cardstock or using some ink, I'm going to go ahead and emboss them with the Ranger Gold Tinsel Embossing Powder. So I just went ahead and put some Versamark ink on that ornament, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set that. And I'm not going to actually use the ornament, I'm just going to use this piece of paper here to go ahead and die cut that little ornament top out of once I have all of the embossing powder set on here. It's just a little bit easier to heat emboss an entire area like this versus trying to heat emboss the ornament tops once you've cut them out. Just because they're really tiny, it's really hard to emboss something that small. So now that I have it all set there, I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cut machine so I have those for the assembly later on the card. And as you can see here, when I go ahead and assemble this, these little tops are going to fit perfectly inside each of these ornaments. Now you're probably wondering how those are going to actually stay there since they're not larger than the whole area and they actually fit inside. But what we're going to do is put a piece of acetate behind there since this is going to be a shaker card. So that acetate is what's going to hold those ornament toppers in place. But before we get to the acetate, I want to go ahead and put the sentiment on. I'm going to be using the Peace on Earth stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and since we're going to be heating embossing this, that's why we want to kind of make sure this is done before we add any acetate, because we don't want to melt the acetate with the heat once we do the embossing. So once again, I'm using VersaFine ink. I'm going ahead and stamping that sentiment, which fits perfectly in that little area there. It's the perfect size to kind of fill that space and not look too out of place with the way the ornaments are positioned on the card front. So I'm using the same gold tinsel embossing powder and going ahead and heat embossing that. And then that's going to perfectly match the ornament tops when we assemble the rest of the card. But before we do that, we also need to add the little ornament strings onto the card. So I'm going to use the one that comes in the stamp set. It's a nice long string, so you can kind of use it and position it whether your ornaments are high up on cards or lower. And for this one here, I'm just going to kind of position it in two different directions so that I have a little bit of variety for what the string tops of the ornaments look like. So I'm just going ahead once again with the Versamark ink, heat embossing those with the gold tinsel embossing powder. And then I know everything is going to completely match on the card. And I just like having all of the different gold accents. It kind of just draws the eye in to have the sparkly gold at the top area plus with the sentiment and then on the tops of the ornaments when we have it all finished here. So now that I have all of the embossing done, I'm just going ahead and adding adhesive all over that entire piece, making sure I really concentrate it around the edges of the ornaments, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere this piece of acetate on. This is just a piece that I had laying around. You can use old packaging or you can buy Hero Arts acetate note cards. There's all kinds of different possibilities to use for your acetate piece, and I just went ahead and kind of wiped it there because sometimes the adhesive sticks a little bit to it, but it comes off no problem. And now that the acetate's stuck on there, we're going to go ahead and put the ornament tops in. So you can see I have one in there already. And I just went ahead and put some adhesive onto the second one and just kind of positioned that right in there. And they fit just like a puzzle right inside. And it looks really neat when the whole card's finished because they're kind of just floating there. So it's kind of a fun look. So now it's time to create the shaker part. I'm not going to bore you too much with all of the foam adhesive that we're going to add because it took a kind of a little while. You'll see in a few minutes why. But you're just going to go ahead and add all your foam adhesive, making sure you go directly around the ornaments. And I went 2 pieces wide with my foam tape just so it was nice and deep for all the sequins to go into. So now you can see I have a ton of foam tape on there, and it might be probably way more than I need, but I like to make sure that nothing sags or there's no issue with the card once I put it together. And one little trick I like to do when I'm making a shaker card with foam tape like this is I like to take my powder tool and kind of just go around the inside area of the open area where the shaker part's going to be, just because the sides of the foam tape are kind of sticky still, even though they don't really have adhesive on the sides of them. You can kind of get some tackiness, and this powder helps to take that away so that you don't have a ton of problems where the sequins or whatever you're putting inside of your shaker sticks to the edges. So it's just a little trick that I like to do to kind of prevent some of that. And now I just kind of pulled a whole bunch of different sequins that I thought would look well with the gold embossing that we've done on the card. And I'm just going to kind of go ahead and just grab little pinches of sequins in between my fingers and just kind of fill up these ornaments. And I'm just going to speed through here while I go ahead and fill these. I'm also adding some stars. I think these are from Studio Calico. I only use the red and the gold ones. And then I'm going ahead and continuing to add different colored sequins. I think I put some light purple and pinks and white and clear in a couple different sizes. I put the stars in. I put golden. I think some like aqua color, and I think a light green. Just a nice mix of colors, and I'm really filling these up. Usually when I create shaker cards, I don't put a ton of sequins in just because you don't want to overpower the whole entire card when you're creating it, but because this card is specifically an ornament filled with sequins, we really want to put a lot in there. And then once I finished filling them, I just went ahead and adhered the back piece on. And now you can see here, now that it's all assembled, how great those little sequins look inside those ornaments, just kind of floating in the area there. And I love that the card base and the underneath is white. It really lets the sequins pop out of the card. And now to put the card together, I'm just going ahead and adding the sequin piece onto a card base that I've put a piece of gold foil paper on, and then that completes the card. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're interested in any of the supplies that I've used, you can go ahead and check out the description below. I've linked all of the supplies that I've used, as well as on my blog post for this video. Thanks for watching.